If you have watched the first two videos, you already know something important. The statement cancer feeds on sugar contains some truth, but it does not tell the whole story. We also talked about the fact that a tumor is not one thing. Different parts of the same tumor can behave differently, and different cancers can behave differently as well. Today, I want to take the next step because glucose is not the only fuel many cancer cells can use. Let's start with glutamine. Glutamine is an amino acid. Amino acids are the building blocks that make proteins. Many cancer cells take up glutamine very aggressively, not simply because it can help provide energy, but because it also provides something the cell needs to build. It supplies carbon and it supplies nitrogen. Those are essential raw materials for making proteins and building new DNA. So, glutamine is doing much more than helping produce energy. It is helping the cancer cell make another cancer cell. That is why researchers describe some cancers as being highly dependent on glutamine. Now let's talk about fat. Some cancer cells can also burn fatty acids. Fat is a dense source of energy, and under some conditions, certain cancers appear to be able to use it when glucose becomes less available. Researchers are also studying whether burning fat helps some cancers cope with the stress that comes from growing so rapidly. Exactly how important this is depends on the type of cancer, and it remains an active area of research. But the larger point is the one I want to remember. Many cancer cells are able to adapt. If one fuel becomes harder to find, some cancers can shift towards another. That adaptability has a name: metabolic flexibility. Normally, we think of metabolic flexibility as something positive, something a healthy body can do and switch between glucose and fat depending on what is available. That is a sign of good metabolic health. Cancer cells, however, can use that same adaptability for a very different purpose: to help the cancer survive and keep growing. That is one of the reasons cancer metabolism is so complicated. It is also one of the reasons there is no single diet that we can honestly say works for every cancer or every person. Different cancers do not all use fuel in exactly the same way. So remember that. So if you've been following this series, you can probably see how the picture has become more complicated. First, we learned that many cancers rely heavily on glycolysis. Then we learned that tumors are not all the same. Now we've learned that many cancers can use more than one fuel. That brings us to the next question. If cancer cells can use glucose, glutamine, and sometimes fat, what happens when the body begins using ketones instead? That is exactly what we'll talk about in the next video. We'll look at the ketogenic diet, why researchers have become interested in it, what the evidence shows, and just as importantly, what it does not yet show. If this series has been helpful, I hope you'll join me for that final discussion. I work with cancer patients and survivors using a metabolic approach alongside their standard cancer care. I am licensed in New York and Pennsylvania. If you live in one of those states and would like to talk, there is a link below to schedule a clarity call. And wherever you live, thank you for spending these few minutes with me. Take care of yourself.